Right, Houdini comes in two flavours. You've got the bolt through, which has got two set holes on the underside and two mounting holes on the top. By contrast, the threaded has got two keyhole slots on the underside and two mounting holes on the top. The design is such that the bottom part actually moves with respect to the top part. You can see that wobbling left to right, up and down, but the specific shape is designed to stop it moving forwards and backwards. That's because Houdini I describe as being a record cutter in reverse. A record cutter, when it cuts the record, moves left to right, up and down, but it does not move to and fro as it travels across and cuts the record. And that's, if you want to get the best possible sound, you want to try and recreate that particular action in reverse. To mount Houdini, you need only a few tools. We need the screwdriver that comes with it. There are various screws. You've got various lengths, long ones, and you've also got some short ones. And you've got a screwdriver, and we ask that you've got either a pair of side snips for electrical use or nail cutters. How it works is, if you have a threaded cartridge, you mount the two small screws into the top of the cartridge, which is threaded, such as an Audio-Technica, Autofon cartridges are all threaded, and various other ones. You don't have to be precise about it, they just merely locate and engage. And then all you do is pop it into the keyhole slots, hold it from the rear, as you saw when I unscrewed it, put the screwdriver in, and that's it. That's the threaded cartridge already mounted. You've now got the movement left and right and up and down. For the bolt through cartridges, we've actually got to cut the length of the screws, and even with these long screws, if we take a bolt through cartridge such as this AT760, we put the screws in sideways. We then need the jig. The jig then goes over the screws and it locks them into place left and right. As long as you make sure they're nice and tight, you take your side snips or your nail cutters, one, and that's it. The screws are now cut to length and they can now be offered up to the cartridge. You can either do one at a time. On this particular cartridge, it's probably easier to do just the one screw to start with. Thread it in. You can in fact tighten it virtually all the way. That'll give you some degree of security. And take the second screw and you merely locate the screw hole because you can see straight through it. I put the screwdriver in, it comes out the other end. And again, tighten that down. That's it. One bolt through cartridge correctly mounted. Now, The thing about Houdini is it doesn't want to add any extra mass to the moving system of the arm, and so the whole assembly, Houdini and the 4 screws, only come to 1.1 grams. Having mounted Houdini to the 2 cartridges, the next job is to actually fit the assembly to an arm, and I'm choosing the Rega P10 with an RB3000. The easiest way to do it is to basically start by removing the arm and setting the VTA on that. Rather than doing it on a professional jig, I'm assuming that this is going to be done at home, so I'm using a soft support, some form of a cushion. What we do is we flip the deck over and release the cable clamp. Easy for everyone. And undo the arm screws. Again, I'm not using any particularly fancy tools. Rega uses torque screws, and I've just bought a cheap screwdriver set which has got the relevant torque screwdriver in it. With the screws removed, pull the arm out, and to make like we don't have to remove all the cables, we can now just pop the VTA spacer in, which is set for the Rega cartridge, and just reassemble the whole thing in place. Back onto its back and refit the cable clamp. Once that's done, that's it. Now, People describe arms as being very, very delicate and very high precision, and yet if you look at the arms on SL1200s, they've seen an awful lot of rough treatment, and yet they still work very, very well indeed, and we'll be discussing this in a later video. So don't be frightened of actually doing the work, especially since you've got the resilient support of the cushion. Having remounted the arm back onto the P10, but this time with the VTA spacer, we're now ready to actually fit the cartridge. And at the moment we're going to refit the original cartridge that was on the arm, so it's going to go back into the original spot. We already know where to put it because we've already put little markers either side. So all we've got to do now is connect the wires and tags onto the cartridge. Now that's done, all that's left is take the screws, start fitting them into the Houdini. And it's easy to see exactly where they're meant to go alongside the black marks. We then tighten it up. That's it, that's the job done. We then have to just reset the tracking weight to account for the extra weight of the Houdini, which is 1.1 grams. The bias doesn't need changing from the original setting. And you're ready to play records. Right, having mounted an existing cartridge to the Rega arm, what happens if we want to take a cartridge that we've never fitted to the arm before? Something like this one. Well, we've already mounted the Houdini onto it. We've then got to mount this onto the arm, and then we've got to align it. Well, aligning a cartridge is probably the worst job in hi-fi. You're trying to look at the tiny little stylus, and usually you put it on an alignment protractor which has got a tiny little crosshair. It's all hidden from view, so you've got to try and see where the stylus is. It's a wretched job. Nobody likes doing it, and this is what makes hi-fi and turntables terrifying. Well, I'm here to show you that that's not necessarily the case. And the way to get around it is to use Eeze-Lign, a product that I've developed that does exactly what it says. It makes aligning a cartridge on most arms very, very easy. So how does it work? Well, Eeze-Lign comes as a kit of shims and a master reference component. The shims are little plastic shims along with the master, which is a very tiny little reference component, and it's got two little tiny lugs in it. And the way I can describe it is to use it on this particular headshell, the Cobra headshell. We've now fitted the reference point to the back, which I've painted pink so that you can see. In it you can actually see there's a tiny little V-slot, and the little tiny little alignment ship lines up with it into the slot, and it can't go anywhere else. And there are two holes in it, and where those holes go is where the cartridge goes. And the shims have got the holes in different places that relate to the different cartridges you're likely to use. And once that's done, that's the job complete. So how does it really work? Well, we've got to first of all select from the instructions the particular shim that's needed, and the shims themselves are numbered. This particular one is a C4. And then there's a little adhesive strip. You peel that off, and using a couple of screws, we fit those temporarily to Houdini. And in so doing, because the screws are perpendicular, the shim is now in the right place, press down, it's now stuck, we can now remove the screws. We now have Eeze-Lign set up on this particular cartridge assembly. The same thing happens with the headshell slots, where we have again a small bit of adhesive strip. You peel that off, and we fit that to the rear of the slots of the headshell, and we're good to go. Haven't got the assembly, we're now going to fit it to a turntable that's got no VTA capability whatsoever. In this particular instance, I'm using an AT120, which, although it's got the so-called camera style adjustment showing, it isn't, it's just a moulding. So the normal advice is change the deck, which, as I've said, is why I developed Cobra. Now, just fit Cobra with the cartridge into it. And let's look at the entire setup. We've got the Boeing feet, which provide better isolation than the original feet designed for most of these turntables, be they 120s, SL1200s, 1500s, and so on and so forth. We've also got the APM, we'll be discussing that in another video. The appearance has been changed considerably by the addition of Cinderella. I personally get tired of seeing just black turntables that are just generically made out of plastic. It provides both damping, makes it a more solid finish, but also you can change the appearance to suit your personal preferences. We've also got the new Glide anti-static record cleaning brush that sweeps dust particles out of the way of the path of the stylus. What we now do is just, with the record in place, with the cue lowered, we now put the stylus onto the record and check for it being parallel. If we're not happy with Cobra, all we do is taking it to an extreme and lower again. We do that until we are satisfied that the arm tube is actually parallel to the record, and then very gently just put a lock on the rear, and that's the job done.